What's going on, fam? Welcome to the Dr. Eric K. Coleman Show. Today's episode, we will be discussing a topic concerning how to keep strong relationships. Once you start it, how do you cultivate that relationship to keep it strong just in the same fashion as you started it? How do we keep that same type of energy? How do we keep that same level of intensity as to pursuing one another throughout the duration of the relationship? We will be using the platform of a YouTube channel called Worth the Wait, Ray and Bree, as they will be discussing scenarios within their own relationship, signifying and giving us tips and clues and strategy as to how they cultivated their relationship, thus giving us a introspective look, a didactic look, teach us some things as far as what we can apply to our own relationships. Let's go ahead and jump into the clip. You love me like no, you love me like oh, you love me like that, you love me like no.
Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. It's
Right.
and Bree, and you're watching Worth the Wait.
What we're talking about today is how to keep a healthy, happy, strong relationship.
Yes, Lord.
So you're already in a relationship. We always know how that honeymoon phase goes. Everything always seems good in the beginning, but it's how to keep that relationship healthy and strong for the long term. Now, I think there's one thing. If you keep this one thing in mind, then everything will be good and it will go good and it will be good.
I guess he had a lack of terminology there.
You want to have a healthy, strong relationship, and you want to keep a healthy, strong relationship. The one thing that you need to remember to keep in mind is that as long as each of you are thinking about the other person, then your relationship will be fine.
Let me stop there for a second, fam. This is something that I constantly communicate here on the platform. The danger or the pitfall in relationships is when one of the parties is constantly thinking about what they are not getting out of the relationship. That's where we falter. If I am constantly focused on my wife, her needs, desires, wants, what it is that she needs, and she is returning that same type of energy towards me, then how are we truly lacking in the relationship? Again, that's a very good point, and that's something that we really need to take into consideration when we're talking about engagement in daily relationships.
The issue happens when people start thinking about themselves in the relationship. That's when everything or all hell breaks loose in it.
Yeah, and one thing I want to say about that is I don't want you guys to get this confused with basically putting the other person over your own self, especially in like the beginning phases of a relationship. What Dre's talking about is like with us, for example, like we are engaged to marry, we are in a long-term relationship, and he's saying as long as I put him first and he puts me first, and in thought and in action, that you'll be good. Now, there's people that are in
Absolutely.
relationships right now that maybe aren't even healthy. So if you're not in a healthy relationship, it doesn't mean for you to continue to put that person before you or make choices that are just good for them but not good for you. It means if you're already in a healthy relationship, that's what you should be doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but that's why it's unhealthy. Think about it. If you're doing stuff for the other person and you're putting them first and they're not putting you first, to get to my point, that's when issues happen.
I more mean on a in a space of like for example, if your health is really important, if you're putting someone else first or thinking of someone else, you're doing something for someone else and it's taking away from what you're supposed to be doing for yourself. So if you're not going to the gym because your man wants to spend time with you, or if you're staying up all night long and not doing what you need to do the next day because he wants to spend time with you. Like, that's not healthy.
But that leads to my point. If he was thinking about you, he knows what you're trying to accomplish. He knows what you're trying to do. So he wouldn't do that to you if he knows the goals you're trying to reach. So that
relationship.
So, and that leads to my point in saying that if people are thinking about themselves, even if it's one person thinking about themselves, then the relationship won't work. If both people are thinking about the other person in the relationship, then you won't have the issues that you have. That's how you keep the strong healthy relationship. And naturally, as humans, self-preservation is the number one thing that we always think about. Like, you think about yourself. If you're going through something or you're hurt by something, you want to preserve yourself and who you are and protect your own self and your own emotions, your own physical body. But if you take the approach, and like Bree said, it's not the point to where you're like doing something crazily like unhealthy for yourself in order to do something for somebody else. But if you always keep that other person in mind and they always keep you in mind, then a lot of times things will be fine. The only time, a lot of times that where we have issues in our relationship is because the thoughts become a little more selfish. If you watch our last video, how we said,
Yeah, let's unpack that a little bit. The thoughts become selfish. How many times have we engaged in a conversation? How many times have we gone to an event or just anything in that regard, and the situation becomes about us? And I believe we talked about this in our last episode of how the conversation shifts from the thought perspectives and feelings of one person to whereas the conversation has totally now shifted to be about the other person when it is originally the other party that is trying to convey their thoughts and emotions. And now we are totally sidetracked and we have just shut down this safe place and safe space for someone to be able to open up and share their heart, share their emotions because they're not feeling acknowledged in the moment. So I totally agree what Dre and Bree are talking about here in regards to constantly thinking about the other person. Again, not to be a doormat, not to be in a negative connotation when we think about the word submissive or being a doormat. No, the word submissive is a beautiful thing. We are submitting to one another. I'm submitting to your thoughts, perceptions, and your emotions and how you feel about a situation, just as you are doing the same towards me. We're keeping each other's thought processes in mind and not being so narcissistic, not being so pragmatic, not being so one sided to where we're not able to see the other side of the coin.
and we got into it about the house stuff and things like that, and how we goal set and said we wanted to buy a house for cash. Like Free said that, oh, at that point I was focused on what I wanted and what I felt like I needed in that moment. And then that's where we had issues because at that moment she was thinking about just like what she wanted in that point. And there's been times that I've been there and I've been like, thinking about just what I want or what I feel should happen. And then that's when the issues tend to occur. But as long as we're thinking about each other first, if I'm going into something thinking about how she may feel about it or how it's going to affect her or how her emotions may come out, once this thing is done, and she's looking at it the same way, then we normally don't have issues when that happens.
Yeah.
When you get cheated on, it's like somebody's being selfish. They're thinking about themselves. They're thinking about their own emotions, their own feelings. You know, when people feel like, they're going distant or people have financial issues in a relationship and this person did this with the money or that for a lot of times it's thinking selfishly, or even the person not who did something with the money or someone who doesn't want to do something with the money, they're maybe thinking more selfish or maybe thinking about themselves. But if you think about one another at all times, then your relationship will be good because then you don't feel like you need to, self validate yourself because your partner's already doing that for you.
Well, let's stop there for a sec, fam. This reoccurring word here selfishness. And that's something that we really have to call to the carpet here. How selfish are we really in our relationships? When people are talking about, well, I am not getting out of this relationship what I want, what I desire, what I need, rightfully so. That's fair. That's a justifiable argument because we don't want to be in relationships that are toxic, that are wasting our time, that aren't amounting to anything, and and relationships that are stifling growth. However, if we are just in a relationship just to take, and for the other person to, in Dre's words, validate us because we have not healed from a past relationship or a past experience. We have not done the work on ourselves to figure out, why did I show up in the relationship the way that I did, and why am I engaging the way that I am? Selfishness can creep in very easily and very subtly. Sometimes blatantly, but a lot of times it's very subtle when we talk about this thing called selfishness. The information they're sharing right now is not a conclusive way of looking that if we put these practices into place that it's going to fix any and every relationship. By no means, no, we're not saying that. However, and some people could also look at it as being anecdotal. This just might be what works for them in their relationship. However, I do believe this is a good advice sharing here, that we need to be very cautious and conscious about how we show up in relationships, as in, are we being selfish? Are we just looking through the lens of the relationship based off of what I am and am not getting out of it? And the moment that I am not getting what I want, not necessarily what I need, but if I'm not getting out of this relationship what I want, then it's time to pack my toys and go. And it's time for the other person to kick rocks. So we got to be thinking about that and doing the self examination. How selfish are we? We're selfish people by nature. Self-preservation is all about us. So yeah, that's a really good point that they're sharing right now.
Yeah.
If your partner's telling you you're beautiful all the time, like you don't feel like if it's getting that all the time from them, you don't feel like you need to get that from somewhere else or something else or anything like that.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you would say as far as keeping a strong, healthy relationship?
I think it just boils down to what we always say too, that communication is key.
Yeah.
Because if the only way to know that if that's not happening from another person, or to communicate if that is or isn't happening, the thinking of the other person is to really communicate. Because sometimes people can be, when you're being selfish, you're all about you, and so until someone says something to you, you just don't know or don't realize that you're doing it, because if it's something that you're used to doing or that feels natural to you, you may not realize. And I think that sometimes people like quickly end relationships just because of like momentary things, like something that maybe could have been worked out and that could have been communicated and
Wow,
whatnot. So I would
momentary
say that
things.
communicating is just as important, because in order to know if there's something up, a lot of times why people do end up cheating is because something is off in the relationship, and instead of saying something about it, they react on it, and then they feel that they can validate it through the lack of whatever the person wasn't doing, but it was never communicated to them. So how can somebody go about fixing or being a part of a healthy relationship if you're not doing the simple thing of communicating?
This goes into another topic of conversation that we spoke about in previous episodes in relation to responding versus reacting. When we respond to something, there is a thoughtful, methodical, educated, intentional approach that we have taken. We're looking at, quote unquote, the data, we're having the conversations, we're taking evaluation, we're taking inventory, we're looking at ourselves, we're looking at our partner, our spouse, to evaluate what are the issues going on here, what have we not communicated, what have we not addressed, to be able to come to a mutual understanding mutuality, taking the other person into consideration here, al- allowing them to be able to do the self correction once we have brought it to their attention. Or in contrast, when we talk about reacting, reacting or reactions or knee jerk reactions, as Bree is talking about here, we are reacting out of our emotion, out of our fear, our hurt, our pain, our triggers. We're not taking the time to take a thoughtful approach into seeing how we can fix the problem or fix the error in our relationships, being platonic, romantic, family member, spouse, work, friendships, parental acquaintances, you name it. Are we reacting out of our emotions, out of what we are feeling at that moment in time? Or is it intentional for us to respond appropriately so that we can get the best result?
Yeah, I agree with that. She made a good point. There's a lot of people who you don't understand that no matter how much you think you're alike, whoever you're with, you're two different people. Like you're two people. Like you do things differently, you think about
Two
things
different people
differently.
trying to come
And you
together,
have friends and I've
working as
had friends
one.
who
Absolutely.
do things that seem selfish or do things that seem like maybe, I don't know, cynical or whatever, or seem malicious. But really, sometimes those people just don't know it or like they don't understand how what they're doing is actually coming off. So it's like sometimes you have to explain it to them, in love and communicate that to them because, as you said, sometimes people just don't know.
Key point, explaining things in love. And we'll talk about that at a later time, place, episode. This whole concept of love. That is one of the most misunderstood words in the English language, in culture, in society, in our communities. We think love is based again off of our reaction, our immediate thoughts, our immediate emotions, our immediate feelings. And it's just not so. When we are saying that we love someone, the root context or content, when we're talking about the action of love, not just a word or a descriptive to explain how we feel. No, love is an action. Love is a verb. Love is doing. It is esteeming someone else higher than yourself. Not that we're putting people above us and we're not doing self care, but no, it is not always being selfish to where everything is about us. It is, I love you enough. I am going to do an action. I am going to esteem someone else. I am going to put someone else first. I am going to acknowledge someone else's feelings, their thoughts, their perspectives, their well being. I am here for your well being. I love you enough. I esteem you enough. I care about you enough that I am going to do what I need to do to make sure that you are okay, to make sure that you are mentally, physically, and spiritually okay. And I am placing that above myself for this period of time, for this dispensation of time, that it's not all about me, but I want to make sure that you are okay. And it may be to the extent of telling you things that you don't want to hear, or telling you to do things that you don't want to do, but it is for your betterment, it is for your good, and it's for your well-being. We need to understand the full counsel and concept of this word called love in its entirety, what the context, what the crux of love is, and how do we express that in a tangible way.
Yeah, like it's not intentional.
It's not an intentional thing. So communication is definitely a huge part of keeping a healthy, strong relationship. But even in the base of that, if you're always keeping that other person in mind, if you're communicating and you yelling like "Yo, B," like you effing whatever, like, and calling them out their name and saying all this derogatory and vulgar thing, you're not thinking about that person. You say you love that person, but you're tearing them down. You're saying things that's going to be hard to take back. Think about the other person. How will they receive it? Every person is, and you have to look at that person and say, all right, if I say it like this, even though I wouldn't react this way if somebody said it to me, this is how she or he would react if I.
Bingo. I was just having a conversation with my wife the other day. Me and Nikki were talking about this very thing of when we talk about love languages and how people receive certain things, whether it be verbal or nonverbal responses and actions in our communication styles. It's we are not able to love someone else the way that we want to be loved because that is not the way that the other person 9 times out of 10 will recognize that it is love. So we have to be very intentional of how we communicate things if we are saying we're doing it in a loving manner. Again, loving meaning I'm doing this for your betterment. I'm doing this for your good. I'm doing this to make sure that you are able to grow and become. It may be something that you don't want to hear, but I am saying it in a way that you will be able to receive it. It's not derogatory, it's not tearing you down, it is building you up, but I am presenting the truth. That's what we're talking about here. I love you enough, I care about you enough to tell you the truth. And that's a very hard pill to swallow.
I said it this way. So let me think about how I do that. So let me say this in this way. Or let me wait a little bit for Bree sometimes. Let me buy her food first and then talk about it over over a meal. So she's like in a good mood.
It works every time. Really good. I light up.
So it's like that's me thinking about her. It's like I need to communicate something, but I need to think about her in the process of me communicating. I need to
Amen.
make sure that I'm
That's
taking into
what's
account
up.
her feelings and how she may take these things, especially if it's something that she was anticipating or waiting for, and I'm breaking it to her like we can't do this right now. So
And for me, when I want to communicate something to Dre, I have to like write it down, all the details, how much it costs, why it makes sense, and present it like it's a report. Like, look at this stuff, you know, if it makes sense.
and she's thinking about me when she's doing that, even though it may be something against what I may want to do, she's still thinking of me. So it's value in even if something
Yeah, there's
isn't necessarily
value in
what
it.
you
That's
wanted,
a
you
good
can
one. That's a good
appreciate the
point.
way
There's
that
value.
somebody brought it to you or communicated it to you. And you know that they understand, like, like what your motive was. Even when we did the house or looking for a new apartment, I did the plan and stuff like that. And she was upset because she wanted a house, but she still said, like, I appreciate you like taking the time to lay out this plan and do this. I'm not mad at you. I'm just upset at the situation. That she's thinking about me because imagine if she just got upset and I did this thing that I thought what she wanted and she just didn't say nothing to me. Then it's just like, dang, like I feel like I did this for you or to help you and you just like left me out here hanging. But
Mm.
for her to keep me in mind, she was upset. She took the time to say, you know what, I thank you. I appreciate you doing this for me. I understand why you did it. I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at the situation. So
And that takes maturity as well for the other person to be willing to acknowledge that, yes, I may be upset with the situation, but I understand why you did or said what you did. It was for my betterment, it was for my growth, and I acknowledge that. So again, this goes both ways. Being considerate of the other person's feelings and how they will receive information, while at the same time, the other party being considerate enough, I understand and acknowledge that this person went out of their way, knowing that it wasn't in their nature and their character to receive it the way that I receive it, but they thought enough of me to do this extra legwork to present it to me in a way that I will be able to receive it. We got to be able to look at this thing from both dimensions here, both sides of the coin.
As long as you keep the other person in mind, keep them first, then your relationship will be good. But it has to be a two-way road, as we know. If one person is doing that and the other person is not, it's always going to be issues.
Absolutely.
Both people have to always be thinking about each other and keeping each other first, and then everything will be fine. You don't have to worry about taking the trash out or like doing that. Like she will see the trash getting full and she'll just pull it out, even though that's my responsibility. Like she's thinking of me and the things I have to do, and I'll do things that she normally does if I see she's busy. As long as you think about the other person, things will be great. When you start thinking about yourself and the other person start thinking about themselves, that's when the issues will start to happen and occur.
How long have we been together?
This is going on until May 2017. So this is going on,
3 years.
yeah.
So I just want to put this out there that this isn't like bogus information or just something that we're like, what sounds good. We've been together almost 3 years, and literally we have had I can't count on, or I can count on one hand how many times we've had like an argument for like like we honestly just had our first real like fight. It wasn't even a fight because we didn't fight. We just didn't talk for like 48 hours, which is like the longest that we've ever gone without talking to each other. And when I'm hearing Dre talk, I'm just listening. It's like I've never been in such a great relationship, and I want you guys to understand that this is not like stuff that went out of our butt. It's stuff that were the fundamentals of our relationship from the very beginning, and it works like crazy because we are best friends. We do this stuff, and even though some of it's hard, especially more so for me. So if you're the Bree in the relationship that has like a lot of like past bad relationships and trust issues and like personal attitude issues, it's hard, but it's so worth it because I just look back at like old relationships and be like, how in the world did I have enough energy to deal with all the crap that I was dealing with? And when you don't deal with the crap and you really say, this is what I want, and this is what I want, this is what it takes to get it, you're going to be so happy. And so find somebody who wants to have real, happy, healthy love too, because they'll be willing to put in the work. And you'll know, like you will know. So just wanted to put that out there.
Well, very nice of you.
Thanks.
I love you.
Thank you. We're so good.
Yeah, so as I said, like I said, the one thing to remember, just always think of that other person. Keep them first. They keep you first. Everything will be good. When you get in trouble, when you start thinking about yourself.
Yes. 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 So make sure you guys comment below. Let us know if this was helpful.
And we're gonna stop the clip there, fam. Again, just to wrap things up, thinking about that other person, where all of this starts and where all this stems is doing the work on ourselves first, as Bree said at the end. Doing the work on yourself. We're bringing in baggage from past relationships, all these triggers and hurts and pains, and we don't know where all this stuff is coming from. We know it's from past relationships, but we have not done the work to pinpoint these things of where it stems from, or who the person was that hurt us. So again, with our backpacks, when we're entering into these relationships, there's no way that we can really think about that other person if we have not done the work on ourselves first. So please, fam, keep these things in mind. Do your homework. Take inventory of that backpack. Pull it out. All those things. Understand why you are the way that you are, so that you can understand why it is the way that you engage in relationships on a daily basis. And once we have these tools in mind and have this mindset, we're then better able to present ourselves to our families, our community, society, this nation, and globally. So until next time, continue to think differently about relationships.